What's going down, everybody, and welcome back to another altered art tutorial. Today we're going to be talking about blending blacks. This is something that I've been asked about a couple times. How do I do it? How do I get dark colors to match? And of course, after this one, there'll be a blending whites or blending light colored video to accompany this one. So I've got a core Spirit Dancer. It's base coated with a Staedtler marker and then my standard black mix on the bottom. I've got videos that highlight this already. I've got my number 6 Princeton chisel blender. It's a little bit beat up, but we love it. That's what it looks like, and basically I use it like this to mix in a small amount of paint, and then I can dab a little bit like this. And I chose this core Spirit Dancer because it has some really dark grayish black. It's got some lighter colors. It's got a mix of brown and black and white, and those are the 3 colors I'm going to be using. And I did a little bit of a supplies video a little while back, but some of my supplies and how I use them have changed. So I've got this lamp or ebony black Americana 2-ounce bottle. This is a really flat black and it doesn't give the same sheen that a card normally has. So what I do is also mix it with bone black golden fluid acrylic. Now officially this is a satin finish, but it is glossy enough to contend with how glossy a card looks. So the finish is a little bit more card natural. I mix these two together about 50-50 or maybe just a little bit more of this because it's got a higher pigment load. So that's what I use for my black. I do the same exact thing with my white. Same exact thing. So I've got titanium white and titanium white. It's the same white, but this is a little bit flatter. This is a little bit glossier. This is a little bit thicker. So I mix them to the desired consistency, the desired opacity, and the desired flatness. So that's what I do there. And then for my brown, the other color I'm going to be using is just a burnt sienna. Sorry, that should say burnt. This is like your standard brown that you would use. So I've got those 3 colors laid out in my little tiny palette. I've got my number 6 chisel blender, and essentially I've got my lights on. That's why you're going to see that the video looks a little bit orange or reddish. But essentially I would just take black, take some white, take some brown, and you always want a little bit more white than you think in your blacks and your dark browns. And I got to move my head a little bit with my camera above the card to get it to all line up. But essentially that's how it starts. Just a really light coat, a little bit of finger tapping, make sure I've got the color correct. Of course you can still see through it, but that's how it goes, and you can see how far into the card I went there. And I can already tell that I've got too much white in there. There, I think I've got the color to a place that I'm happy at. You see I went right into the card there. And from a painting perspective, something that you got to remember, typically with acrylics, is that they're going to dry about a shade darker than you put them on. Except when you're using black, or more in particular, when you're using a satin or a flat black, which, like I said, I'm using a mixture of satin plus flat. That's going to dry a little bit lighter, or at least it's going to look a little bit lighter because you're going to lose that wet, dark look. You're going to get a look that's not going to reflect as much light. And for whatever reason, that just makes it look lighter than when you put it on. And that's unique with black only. That isn't true with any of the other colors, so just keep that in mind. And it's still important when blending or mixing or doing a card like this that is primarily black paint. The other colors that you mix it with might look a little bit darker when they dry, but the black is going to look lighter. So just remember that. Hopefully it turns out well in the end. Now I'm moving on to, it looks like there's a little bit of a body piece here. And this piece has got a lot more brown and white in it, so I'm sure it's going to dry, like I said, just a touch darker. Just a touch darker. Not like you could mix the wrong color and get away with it. You still have to do your diligence on your color matching, but it's just a little bit different when you're working with lighter colors. Now, I'm going to add in a little bit of this yellow that I have because it looks like a little tiny bit of yellow in this brown. And you can sort of get away with kind of faking a color when you're working with colors that are so saturated in black. I'm mixing in a little bit of yellow in with my brown, and it kind of gives you an orange look. Orangish, dark brown yellow look. And I don't know what the little edge of this piece is. I'm just using my imagination, but it could be the side of another animal or a rock. It could be anything. So it doesn't really matter what the shape of it is. And I know it's even a little bit hard to see, but like you can see there's a little bit of a different color there. And hopefully your brain can kind of fill in the blanks on that. The same is going to be true up here for this elephant's head. I'm not even sure if his head would go kind of past right about there. So I think I'm just going to leave that, but his tusks are going to need to get done. But not before I do this antelope's body the same way that I did this cat. So a little bit of cleanup, you expose a little bit here so you know that your line is going to stay true where the lit side of that deer's back is or that antelope's back is, and just get back to it. I'm using the same pile of paint here to make sure that I can see if I'm going too light or too dark as opposed to the previous color that I used. And I do that because I just work around and I can use the pile, this color, to effectively mix this color, and then the pile, this color, to effectively mix this color, and then I know that my colors are staying true to how I move around the card. So just a little bit of a technical kind of scheduling thing there that helps me make sure my colors are staying good. And again, this is going to be blended down, and this is going to be just a standard black fade type thing, so it's not going to super matter. I think I need less white there. Less white. You'll find that when you add too much white, it looks not as crisp or farther away. It's like you're adding atmosphere in front of whatever you're painting. And ever so slightly, we build up the layers. We add a little bit of that yellow in again to give us that orangish brown. Blend it into the card. You tap it off a little bit to feather the edge. This is all standard blending stuff that I've gone over in other videos. So you make sure you watch all of the videos on the tutorial playlist if you're into altered art. Now, here's a little bit of a new technique, and you got to make sure that you have barely no paint on your brush. So just off camera, I've actually got a bunch of paper towel that I wipe a bunch off with, and you can see barely none on my brush there, and you got to make sure that this is really dry. So again, barely none, and you can kind of just start to feather this in and just tap it and smudge it. And that's going to give you just a super subtle fade, but it's going to make sure that you're getting a little bit of paint on the original surface of the card. And that's going to give you kind of the same fade effect. There we go. I hope that translates onto camera because this is a really dark card. And again, I used it to demonstrate how to blend dark colors. I think once we do the fade of this, it's going to look pretty good. So to do that, and I've demonstrated this before, watch the other videos, this is just a number 0 round. Again, a little bit beat up, but we still love it. It's about how big it is. And I just wet it down a touch, get some straight black, go just below where I painted, and then I just feather it up. That's kind of all you need to do. Now there are ways to do a little bit nicer blends from black to whatever, or from whatever to whatever. But this is a really fast, effective, easy way to do it. And if you're new to alters, it's a good technique to learn because you can do this to make like mist at the bottom of a waterfall. You can do this to help you blend clouds into the sky. Just a little bit of finger tapping to take paint back off. And you got to make sure that it's dry in between coats. So what you don't see is me taking the card off camera and holding it underneath my super hot work light that I'm painting under because the camera's in front of me. But that's it so far. And of course, all this gets cleaned up. Now I would move on to the tusks. Again, that yellow, brown, and this is going to need a touch more brown. This is the kind of thing where I would experiment down here a little bit to make sure that I have the color right. And then I would just kind of carry it up, and then I fix this in cleanup. That's where that would go. That's the lit side. Again, clean up to make sure your line stays true. Do a test. Where is it? Where is it? This would be the shadow side on this side, and the lit side will be a little bit brighter. More yellow, more brown. I did the lit side of this antelope. I'm going to do the cleanup, and we're going to finish with the final product. So there's the finished product, and of course you can see all the cleanups done, and this is probably going to be the last ever Jumpstart white card that I paint because they're all reprints, so I can get them from different sets, and the card stock from Jumpstart is so atrociously bad to clean. You have to be so delicate, so just be careful if you're altering Jumpstart cards. You're cleaning them up with a toothpick or a wet paper towel, you will scrub the ink right off the cardstock. So just be careful of that. I had to fix a bunch of this, but I still think it turned out great. Like I said, make sure you subscribe, like, and follow the pages, and we'll be back again with another altered art tutorial very soon.